Amazon is going to do a TV show based on Fallout, which I'm kind of excited for, but...
Wasn't that long announced?
People have been like, would there be a Fallout movie? Would there be a Fallout TV show? Because no one had ever made a screen adaptation of that property before. And there was some... I remember we talked I think maybe a few months ago, I was playing through Fallout 4 and we talked about it on the show. It's an odd one to try to adapt because the game is built so much around personalizing your character, and it being such a kind of every play experience can be different. There's no one particular character that they could necessarily adapt. It would have to be...
But that's a good thing though, right?
There's no restriction.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a double-edged sword. You're not bound to any one particular storyline from a pre-existing game. There's creative freedom there, but will it accurately feel like Fallout if the player, or in this case, the viewer, is not in control of the decisions that the character's making? Because I've always thought that that's a problem with all video game adaptations, where the experience of being a passive viewer is so different from being an active player of the game that you can't really engage with the adaptation quite the same way.
Yeah, but on the flip side, if you're adapting a game in which there is only one character and there's only one storyline in the video game, it's kind of well, I might as well play the video game rather than watch the movie, because the video game in itself is just as good, in a narrative sense.
True.
Whereas in Fallout or even The Witcher, you can create this universe and then have new characters that you introduce that kind of occupy this space, and then kind of let them take you where they go.
Yes. Yeah. So The Witcher proved that you could do it, and The Witcher is probably one of the more critically acclaimed examples of a video game adaptation. But I mean, even then, it wasn't directly adapting the video games. It also had the original source novels that inspired the games to go on. It's a weird one. Obviously, the whole video game adaptation thing is still a little bit of a minefield. There hasn't been one single product that could be Oscar contention, or
I guess we just did our cold open: video games and Fallout. Welcome to the 78th episode of the Extra Buttery Podcast, a free-flowing conversation between two guys who love film and TV. I'm your host, Jason Chen, and I'm joined by my co-host, Robert Snow. In this episode, we talk about Michael Keaton's return as Batman, and then we head on over to the comic book action movie, The Old Guard, and then the musical comedy Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, and we'll finish off with two TV shows, Amazon's Upload and Nowhere Man, available on Netflix. As an actor, I definitely identify Michael Keaton as Batman more so than Christian Bale. Christian Bale has done so many other things that he doesn't strike me as Batman. It's not the most memorable role. But for Michael Keaton, for sure, because Multiplicity wasn't that great. And Jack Frost wasn't that great either, sorry, Michael Keaton. But he was a very good Bruce Wayne and a very good Batman, I think.
Right. And I mean, I'm a little bit different from you in that I identify with Christian Bale as Batman a little bit more. But I mean, obviously, having seen both of the Keaton Batmans, and now this news, the reason why we're talking about it, for anyone who's been off Twitter for a few weeks, there's this news that Keaton has signed on to reprise his role as Batman / Bruce Wayne in the upcoming movie from The Flash, set in the Flash universe. The Incredible, what's he called? The Amazing Flash? The Incredible? No, just The Flash.
No, he's just The Flash. Just The Flash. It's flashy enough. The Flash is just, flashy
yeah,
enough.
So, and I think it's going to be based on the Flashpoint comic. They've been trying for years to get this adaptation off the ground because they wanted to kind of hook up with the DC movies that are currently the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman movies and the Jason Momoa Aquaman movies. It's going to be in that continuity, I think, unless they pull...
How does Ben Affleck tie into this then?
Well, I guess because in the Flashpoint comic, which is one of the most famous...
Oh, alternate timelines.
Yeah, it's one of the most famous Flash comics out there. And basically it involves I haven't read the comic myself, but I've heard that it what it did was it allowed Flash like ran so fast that he moved through time, which he's done a few times before.
Yeah.
And he kind of created a parallel. He got stuck in a parallel universe where all of the familiar characters were kind of mixed up and they had different roles, and some of them were good guys and some of them were bad guys. And he had to find some way to get back to his own dimension. And so their idea, I think, is to bring back some of the actors, whoever they can hire from pre-existing movies, and depict them like, I guess, like probably an older version of Bruce Wayne, played by an old like current day Michael Keaton, and maybe they'll get Christian Bale, although I can't see that happening. He's
yeah, and there's no way he would do that.
He's talked about being kind of done with that world.
But I also thought that the Nolan universe was always going to be separate from the DCEU.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's they're gonna like kind of jump around, but it's very much a tactic from what they did recently on the TV series based on the DC comics, where they've had team up episodes before where they had Melissa Benoist's Supergirl and the characters from Legends of Tomorrow and the characters from Doom Patrol, all these shows, Green Arrow, all these shows which are all like shot in your neck of the woods. But they've been doing very well for the CW. They're clearly pulling in lots of views, and they're quite popular. They have a following. So they've been doing these team up episodes. And in a recent one, they brought back, what's his name? Tom Welling from Smallville to play an alternate universe version of Superman, the Smallville Superman. And then they had Brandon Routh come in as his version of Superman from Bryan Singer's Superman Returns. Even though Brandon Routh already has another role in that universe of shows. So that was kind of like, the continuity was about as scrambled as your typical multiple universe comic book thing. So yeah, like there's a precedent for it, and I'm kind of curious to see what they do with it. A few people theorized that maybe Michael Keaton would play a version of Bruce Wayne / Batman from the Batman Beyond TV show, where he's actually just like a crusty old Bruce Wayne in the Batcave, and the Batman of that universe is actually the super technologically advanced Batman from that animated show from the 90s.
I feel like that's the only Batman he can play right now anyway.
Yeah.
Like there's no way he can play a young Batman.
No, but he might play that, or he might play like a Batman who's more like directly inspired by the one from the Dark Knight Returns comic. So
right, okay,
like a crustier, like 1980s style one.
He's definitely got the look and the voice of a crusty Batman. He plays mean old guys fairly well, so I can see that. And I do think Batman Beyond is one of those Batmans that it hasn't really gotten a lot of acceptance from Batman fans, which I think is a mistake, because I do think Batman Beyond is an interesting concept. Terry McGinnis, maybe, because he's just, some random teen, basically a Dick Grayson kind of clone. He's not very interesting.
No.
Bruce Wayne is far more interesting, but as a version of Batman, I do find the technological stuff and his different methods and his different philosophies really interesting. Not unlike Batwoman or Batgirl or Nightwing even.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That'll be really interesting. Do we know who's playing the Flash? Is it Ezra Miller still?
Apparently there's a lot of like behind the scenes drama involved with that, where like Ezra Miller, they've already like hired several directors and fired several directors, or creative differences. Ezra Miller was reported to have like gotten rid of an existing script and was committed to writing his own version of the script, which is not something you hear the Star doing. Normally the Star kind of sits back and waits for the pages to be delivered to him. So it's a bit
unless you're Edward Norton.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, clearly Ezra Miller is like, he's taking a real like ownership of this project. So, and then some people thought that maybe like Warner Brothers / DC would, they get fed up with Ezra Miller and they would just fire him for this kind of behavior. So it's unclear, so
that'll be interesting. I highly doubt we'll get anything like material, like trailer or production photos for until 2 years from now.
Yeah, at the earliest, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, these people sign contracts and like sometimes they don't fulfill them until like 10 years later, right?
Yeah, I mean, just look at what's happened with going back to the whole like video game adaptation conversation. Like the Nathan Drake thing has been kicking at the Uncharted video games. It's been kicking around Hollywood for like what feels like 8 years or something.
At least, yeah.
And they just can't get it made. And as far as I know, like they had a like, even without the COVID delays, like they were already having to push back the release date until like 2021, but that was ambitious even when they announced that. So
right.
It's still development hell for sure.
Right. But regardless, I think we're both excited to see Michael Keaton back.
Yeah,
as
for
Batman. Sure. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, but he would be, I think, one of 2 or 3 actors who appears both in MCU and DCEU.
Yeah. I think,
which is like really interesting. He's like the only one who can straddle that line.
It's and I'm sure there's going to be many a YouTube video when the movie finally comes out. There'll be many a YouTube video saying that like this is a crime against my fandom or something, you know.
Well, screw to those people. But speaking of comic book films, this is like a really nice like segue. We didn't really plan this, but it kind of flows. But The Old Guard, which is a comic book that was filmed into a movie that Netflix just released this weekend, the weekend of July 10th, starring Charlize Theron as this basically immortal superhero. Yeah, soldier. I don't know what you'd call it, but superhero, I feel like, is the best characterization for this.
Who are you? You can call me Andy. I lead a group of soldiers. Fighters, like you. With an extremely rare skill set.
What do you mean? Mother?
Let's just say we're very hard to kill.
It's basically like they're not really superheroes in the sense that they have like super strength or they can fly or anything like that, but they do have like a Wolverine style super healing ability, and they can be.
That was like I was thinking Logan the entire time I was watching this, because like part of the film's theme is like them dealing with the possibility of death or no death.
Yeah,
like the possibility of them living for thousands of years and watching people they love die, and all these memories and the burden of being the only person alive for however long they live.
Yeah, and basically, like, you know, they can be fully killed, like they can be like shot in the head or stabbed, or they can have their, you know, their body exploded by like a grenade or something like that, but they will slow, depending on the severity of the wound, it'll take a little bit, you know, not much time or a lot of time to fully heal and come back to life. And Charlize Theron's character is the oldest of the bunch. There's when the movie starts, there's just 4 of them left, and she's unclear on how long she's been alive, but it's theorized that it's at least like 3,000 or 4,000 years. And the others are younger than her, but we've got Booker, who was a soldier in the Napoleonic Wars, and so he first died in the early 1800s, and discovered that he also had these immortal powers, and he was found by Andy, Charlize Theron's character. Then we have Nikki, and what was the other guy's name?
Wasn't it John?
John, or Joe.
Joe, sorry.
Yeah, Nikki and Joe, who were both like crusaders on opposite, fighting on the opposite sides of crusader armies back in the 1200s or 1300s, somewhere around then. So they, Andy also found them when they discovered that they had this ability, and it's revealed that these people, these immortals, when they become aware of a new one of them, you know, unlocking their power, they all have this like powerful shared dream, which helps them discover, you know, where that new member is, wherever it is in the world. And then they have to they feel a kind of like kinship with that person, so they try to track them down and bring them into the team. Yeah,
there's a little like clairvoyant psychic ability thing there where they're all like somehow connected. And the villain is played by Harry Melling, who plays Dudley Dursley in the Harry Potter books, and he basically grows up into the villain that you think he would be.
Yeah.
Like, I look at this guy and I go, you know what? Dudley, I can totally 100% that Dudley grew into this like farm bro egomaniac.
Yeah, Martin Shkreli.
Yeah, and zero morals, zero ethics. And I actually thought he was a pretty decent villain. The thing that kind of got me about this film is that, so on the New York Times, this is one of the critics' picks. Like, they don't usually give a score, but they do give it a recommendation or not. And this is one of the movies they recommended. And a lot of positive reviews have been released since. But I can't help the feeling that I felt a little bored during the whole movie. I thought it was formulaic. I didn't find the characters particularly interesting. If you're having themes about death and what it means to die, I thought a lot of other movies have done the same, if not, and done it better. Like Logan, I thought was a very good film about death in general. Although, like, to be fair, Logan had like 20 years of X-Men buildup, so there was definitely a little bit more emotional weight. But all in all, I thought it was a very well done mid-budget action movie that is ultimately, in my opinion, kind of forgettable. What did you think?
Yeah, I think I liked it a bit more than you did, but yeah, I agree that there are big chunks of it are very familiar. Like there's not going to be a lot of twists that you're not going to see coming.
Yeah.
And the character dynamics are very familiar. Charlize Theron is like the leader of the group. She's got a few people under her. You know that there's going to be one member of her group that, spoiler alert, maybe betrays her.
And it's exactly the one you think it is.
Yeah, and then you've got a young recruit. A big bulk of the movie comes around Charlize Theron's team discovering that there's a fifth one of them, and that's a girl named Nile, played by Kiki Lane. And she starts out as a Marine serving in Afghanistan. She's killed during a search of a house, and the other members of the team are drawn to her, and they kind of have to teach her about her new abilities, and that forms a bulk of the kind of like tension in the movie. Is like they sort of inform her that she's going to have to say goodbye to her old life, and she's going to watch her family get old and die, and she'll move on. So a lot of the tension comes from that, and you see a lot of the various character arcs kind of coming from a ways away. But I still felt that like the way it's executed was very solid.
Yes, it is.
The director is
Gina Prince Bythewood, who, by the way, did Love and Basketball, which I've mentioned on this podcast before.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend Love and Basketball.
But I'd heard of her other movies too, Aquila and the Bee, and
isn't it Secret Life of Bees?
Oh, yeah, maybe it's something with bees in the title.
Yeah, Secret Life of Bees, and then she did Beyond the Lights.
Yeah, which is a kind of a pop star movie with Gugu Mbatha-Raw. And but I have to say, I mean, considering that this is really her first foray into like hardcore action, she acquits herself very well. Like,
yeah, very versatile.
There's no kind of like growing pains visible. Like the choreography is not the cleanest in the world. It's not like John Wick or Atomic Blonde level good.
Actually, I heard it's because they did the choreography in separate locations. And then because Charlize Theron did it in somewhere, and then Kiki Lane had to do it in another place. And so when they first met on set, that was actually like one of the few times they could put it together. Oh. So that's why it's a little choppy, and the editing can be a little choppy. It's because they didn't do the choreography together. They did it separately and then put it together.
I see.
When they started filming it. Just before you go on, the only cultural note I want to touch on is that this is the first big budget comic book film that's directed by a Black woman.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, it's good to see Netflix putting their clout behind her, because she doesn't have a whole lot of titles to her name yet. But I mean, this is, it's hiring decisions like this that help, address some of the diversity problems in Hollywood, you might think that, a movie with this kind of budget, old school like cigar chomping producers would be like, I don't think she can handle an action movie, but no, she clearly jumped right in and did very well. And I think she probably also benefited a lot from Charlize Theron as a producer, because Charlize Theron she's been producing movies for a few years now, and she probably had a lot of input into like choreography and all of the behind the scenes things that really help power these complicated big budget type of movies.
Well, she's also, I think, maybe other than Tom Cruise, the biggest action star right now, like the most bankable action star right now, right? Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
Like she has, since Fury Road, she's just really, I think, blown everyone out of the water.
Yes.
So the one thing is, this movie clearly sets up a sequel or a series.
I'm not like mad about that. I mean, it's
I'm not mad, but I'm also like, oh, really? Here we go again. I wonder, because it's based on a comic book series, so there's enough material to draw from. I can't say I'd be terribly convinced to see the sequel.
Again, like spoilers ahead if you haven't watched this yet, or if you care, but they do have to introduce this element in this movie where, you know, there has to be some way of counteracting the immortal kind of powers that these people have, because if they
because it gets boring.
Yeah, you know, so they reveal that there's a chance that certain of these immortal characters at some, you know, point in time that they have no foreknowledge of, they lose their immortality and they start, you know, their wounds don't heal, and, you know, if they get mortally injured, that's it. And it seems to happen to the characters who are the oldest of the bunch, but they still have no idea exactly when it's going to happen. So that does introduce an element of like tension later, especially later in the movie. And it will be interesting to see how the sequel kind of responds to that, because if they have members of their group who are suddenly mortal, even if they're like really good fighters and they're basically like Jason Bourne types, you know, they can be killed, but they can still, like, you know, mow through several dozen mercenaries without much trouble. You know, that does kind of put a killable kind of quality into the ensemble, that, you know, more like a Game of Thrones kind of thing where characters are suddenly very, very mortal again. Yeah, hopefully the sequel will play with that. I don't know. I mean, I can see why Netflix would want to develop something like this, because they've yet to have a really big budget action movie franchise get off the ground.
Actually, have you ever seen The Umbrella Academy?
I did, yeah. I've recently watched all of season 1 of that during quarantine. So
yeah, so season 2 is coming out soon, and I feel like that's another one of those like comic book things that they are trying to sort of make as one of their flagship franchises, I guess.
Yes, yeah. But that's more of a TV show. So this will be like, you know, can they get a like a feature film series off the ground that actually makes it to multiple installments?
Right. I think they will. I mean, like, considering the buzz, I know it's still in the top 10 in Canada right now. Although, you know, let's be honest, I don't know how accurate Netflix's top 10 list is. But just from the sounds of it and how well it's been received, I do think there should be a sequel in the works. I don't see why not.
Because right now this movie is sitting at like, you know, 4 out of 5 for me. But I would like to see them do a little bit more with Charlize Theron's kind of like alienation, because she opens the movie, her character Andy has been trying to save humanity's butt for 4,000 years or whatever, and she's kind of in this mentality of like, let the world burn. Like, no matter how much I do, the world is still full of evil people, and, you know, I can't stop all of these terrible things from happening.
Right.
And she doesn't really get to, in the arc of this movie, she doesn't really get to follow through on that idea very much. I mean, they build up her character fairly well, and they add in a few little details here and there that I appreciated. Like, her character loves baklava, which is just a fun little little thing to include. But they don't really fully land that bit of like her disillusionment, and maybe that's something they can explore in the sequel. I don't know. And of course, like Kiki Lane's character, Niall, she's just like learning all of her abilities now. So they're probably going to make her the focus of a second movie.
By the same token, I do think the most interesting things about the series are the relationships they have with each other. So piggybacking on your idea, I do like the part about, again, spoiler alert, about how Charlize Theron's character has saved the lives of very influential people in this world. I'd love for them to just even flash back to like a period in which she did something that alters the world events. I'm more interested in that aspect. I'm less interested in about movies about, you know, a hero who's indestructible and a villain who's indestructible and them settling some sort of feud that happened 500 years ago. I'm less interested in that, but it does feel like that's where it's going. So that's why I say I'm less interested. In the meantime, though, Netflix did release another movie, and it's called Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga, which we'll just call Eurovision for simplicity's sake. Starring Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams, who are an Icelandic couple who are competing in the Eurovision contest. And basically, I would describe it as... What was that movie he did with John Heder about the ice skating couple?
Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory, yeah. So it's basically kind of like Blades of Glory, where you have two really...
lovable doofuses.
Yes. Who are trying to compete in this contest, and they're the constant underdogs, and there's a misunderstanding with their relationship at some point in the movie. There's a guy, a rival, who's pining for the girl, and then through all sorts of mishaps, they end up actually like pulling it off.
You have to watch that guy. He is a sex player.
Hey, looking good. Secret, very beautiful voice.
Thank you.
We are a duo that will never be separated.
George Michael said something about other Wham guy. No one even knows his name.
Andrew Ridgeley.
And I have to say, like, it's a fine film. I think it's relatively funny.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, the star is Rachel McAdams.
Oh, yeah.
She nails it so hard. And the Icelandic accent she puts on is much better than whatever Will Ferrell's trying to do. And Pierce Brosnan's lame excuse for covering up his Irish accent, I think it is. I wonder if that's a creative choice. Because Will Ferrell, let's face it, he plays one character. He's almost at the point where I'm like, if Rachel McAdams wasn't in this, I'd say this is a terrible film. Because he's at the point where I don't find him funny anymore. He's cringy.
It's like it's this man-child kind of character that he's been playing for a long time. And yeah, I'll agree with you. Like in a lot of his movies, I do find it kind of tiresome, and I haven't. I don't know how many of his movies I've seen over the years, but it's definitely not more than half of them.
Right.
Because usually I can tell from the trailers that I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see what his character's going to do and blah, blah, blah. Some of the odd projects he's done off to the sides I've actually liked a lot more. He did this kind of dark comedy called Stranger Than Fiction back in 2006.
I agree.
I really, really liked. And he was kind of, he was stretching himself as an actor a little bit in that, which I appreciated. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's kind of on a bit of autopilot here, but I think he knows he's a producer on this. And I think he knows that he's not the focus of this movie.
Well, that's a good thing. He shouldn't be.
Because he's apparently like a self-avowed, like hardcore fan of Eurovision, the real life Eurovision. So I think he wanted to like, he brought in like the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, as like a co-producing thing. And
so the story is that he went to an Eurovision contest with his wife and he felt immediately in love with like the whole pastiche thing of Eurovision. And it granted, it is like, if you're not into the music, then you're probably into like the outlandish costumes, the ridiculous production value. And it's not really supposed to be taken seriously, but a lot of people who are in it and who like it really take it seriously. I just think that at 2 hours and some odd minutes, it's a bit long for a film that doesn't have a lot of laughs in it. I think there's certain parts where he lampoons Americans, which I thought was neither here nor there. It almost felt like he did it just to poke fun at the fact that Europeans have this stereotypical attitude that they don't like Americans, and he just felt he needed to put in there to just needle them a little bit.
Yeah, and he wanted to set up like a mechanism to get because there's a last minute rush to the location where the contest is having its grand finale, so his character has been delayed and needs to get there, and there's only like minutes before he has to go on stage, so they set up the American tourists as a device to kind of get him there, but yeah, in terms of the actual like laughs on behalf of the Americans, it didn't really connect. I did really like I loved the Dan Stevens performance. Dan Stevens, who people will probably remember, his earliest, biggest role was Matthew Crawley on Downton Abbey. Very very stuffy British soap opera set in the 10s and 20s and 30s, and he since then he has made a very conscious effort to push himself into every genre imaginable. He's done like a John Wick style action movie with The Guest. He did like a Liam Neeson kind of action movie, but where he played like the comic relief character. And now he's like doing this branch out into this totally over the top Russian singer who's like very clearly gay, but is trying to hide it and trying to put on this front of like incredible masculinity. And I gotta say, like he alongside Rachel McAdams, he's one of the reasons to watch this movie, because it's just so over the top.
Agreed. So that kind of brings me back to Blades of Glory. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you haven't? Okay. So I would recommend you watching Blades of Glory and note how similar it is in the two films. The villains, the love triangle, the last minute rush to the arena, the sort of like relationship between the two leads. It is almost, I would say, a mirror image of Blades of Glory. So I felt a little turned off by that. You know me, like I really hate it when things copy themselves. It's like the Hangover 2 and the Hangover 3.
Right.
To me, it's the same goddamn movie. It's a waste of time. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. Will Ferrell, at this point in his career, really needs someone to bring out the best in him. Rachel McAdams, I think, has done a really good job of transitioning from like the romantic drama actress to comedian. She was really good in Game Night as well. And I think you always appreciate it when certain actors kind of step out of their comfort zone or break that sort of stereotype that they have. So you talked about Dan Stevens. Will Ferrell is the one guy who I do feel like needs to step into like dark comedy or drama. And I think he'd be really good. But for some reason, maybe it's because Sherlock Holmes was so terrible, or Holmes and Watson, whatever, that movie was. I feel like he stepped back into his comfort zone and, hit like a double. Like it was a decent movie, decent return to form. I just wish that hopefully his next film isn't like something like this again.
And in this case, like I saw so many of these other performers that I liked that it was enough to kind of, and coupled that with like the interesting kind of wave of the way the response kind of unfolded when the movie first dropped, where at first people were making fun of it and they were kind of saying, oh, it's just another typical Will Ferrell movie. But then
half decent.
More of the reaction, especially to the supporting cast, came out and people were like, oh no, maybe it's, and it wasn't quite like a backlash kind of thing or like a reverse backlash. It was more just like the positive stuff bubbling up, and it took a bit longer to kind of hit the surface.
Well, this is just like a product of our hot take culture where the first take is always wrong or always bad.
Yeah.
And people really need to take the time to appreciate something rather than having like an instant reaction 30 seconds after they finish the movie. The only thought that I had that stayed from beginning till end when I watched it was that Pierce Brosnan is really, really bad. and at this point, it's so hard for me to watch him on screen and sort of remember that at one point he was like the most handsome, most suave James Bond ever. He is so different from where he was 20, 30 years ago. I feel like he's just mailing it. Like he's doing Mamma Mia. He can't sing or dance.
I will intervene on Mr. Brosnan's behalf here, because I will say that the roles that he's been doing since Bond have all been like, it's kind of like Anthony Hopkins in the most recent Transformers movie, where he's gotten to a point in his career where he just wants to have fun.
How much money do you pay?
No. It's how much fun do you want to have?
Do you think Anthony Hopkins had fun on Transformers? I think he just got...
No, he said he did. He said he picked that movie.
Well, he had fun because he got paid a buttload of money.
No. Because you, like, okay, Anthony Hopkins in Transformers, maybe it's a bad comparison, but think about like Bruce Willis's career right now.
Bruce Willis is, I think, a really underrated actor. When he doesn't do his like Bruce Willis stare, I think he's a really underrated actor.
No, but you think about the like Bruce Willis does like 4 movies a year and he sleeps through all of them.
He does now.
Like I'm talking like the last 10 years, he's at a maybe like a handful of roles, but he works a lot and he does like 4 direct to streaming videos every year. And It's always like he plays like he's like a Steven Seagal now, where he just,
yes,
and so he's not having fun. Because he's playing the exact same character every time, and nobody sees them. Maybe I can't speak for him, but anyway, it seems like Pierce Brosnan is having a lot more fun, and he's playing a wider variety of roles, even if the roles are small or if the movies themselves aren't very good. Like the vibe I get from his performances is that he's just doing things. He's getting paid to do it, obviously, but he's doing roles and things that just entertain him. Concepts that play off of his suaveness in the Bond role and kind of show that he's not just a sexy secret agent kind of thing.
Okay, so fair enough.
So that's my thing on Pierce Brosnan. It just I don't want him to feel like Bruce Willis in Extraction or whatever the hell movie he did last year.
Okay, fair enough. Pierce Brosnan may be having fun, but I'm having a terrible time watching him on screen.
All right, that's fair.
Like, if you were paying me millions of dollars to do a bad job of doing my job, I'd happily do it. But I can't speak for other people watching me like screw this up. It was really distracting just because I think Rachel McAdams was so good And I've met people from Iceland before, and from what I've read, her accent is really spot on and does sound spot on. Will Ferrell will have like American English creep in, and Pierce Brosnan just doesn't get the fuck.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like I said, the quality of the performances doesn't have to be that great, but I mean, if they're doing something, if they're having fun themselves and they're getting paid to do it, I mean,
okay, it does show through sometimes if they're having fun and you kind of laugh along with it. Fair enough. Fine. All right, let's move on to Amazon's TV show Upload. So tell me about this show, because I don't know much about it.
So this one premiered, I think it was like early May that it hit. And I didn't jump into it right away. It was only the past week or two that I kind of blew through it. But it's basically take like the afterlife aspect of The Good Place on NBC.
Okay.
And mix it with like a workplace comedy of like, Parks and Rec or The Office. And add in the kind of like futuristic technology of Black Mirror, and you kind of have a taste of what Upload is.
Wait, is it like a dark thriller type? Like, what's the tone of the show?
The tone is more optimistic, but it definitely satirical.
Okay.
And this is why I think you might be able to get into it, because I know you're not a Black Mirror guy, and other people are not either. Like for some people, like the plot, like the grim kind of plausibility of that show is too much, and you just feel like totally bummed out. Yeah. This is very much like it skirts over the kind of the darkest aspects of it, but the premise is basically several years in the future, humans have unlocked the ability to upload our consciousnesses to these digital resorts when we die. So whether you're like, you die of natural causes, or you die suddenly from a disease or some sort of accident, if you have prepaid into this digital resort, if you've, purchased a subscriber plan, you can upload your consciousness to this resort. And when you get there, everything is provided for you. You live in basically this hotel type experience, and you can eat to your heart's desire, and you have none of the, you can experience everything that you couldn't experience when you were alive. And this wonderful paradise kind of life for people who die is contrasted to the real life, where it's kind of a projection of what we're dealing with now, where there's really severe like income inequality, and like Amazon has completely become this like total monopoly, much worse than today. Water is scarce, food is 3D printed, like it's just not a nice time. So people kind of save up all of their money, and they try to get their soul kind of moved into this digital afterlife if they can.
Hello, Nathan. 10 fingers and toes?
Pretty seamless.
This is the first day of the rest of your afterlife.
You may find yourself living in a beautiful house.
Cool.
Welcome to Lakeview. Uplifting views, timeless Americana.
Yes!
It's 10 a.m. Breakfast is over.
No! It's not even real food!
New guy coming through.
The main character is this guy named Nathan, played by Robbie Amell. And he is like a late 20s coder. He's working on this hot new project to actually make digital afterlife free.
Is he any good?
Well, he's getting close. And so one evening he's out with his girlfriend, and his self-driving car crashes into a dump truck, and he's mortally wounded. And this is something that, like, in this future, self-driving cars are totally ubiquitous. So the odds of one actually crashing are incredibly rare. But his girlfriend, who's quite wealthy, has already purchased a digital afterlife plan for him. So he's uploaded into this place called Lakeview. And he wakes up there, and he's like, oh, God, what happened to me? And he can't really remember his death. He has certain memory files missing. So he has to work with his customer service rep, who's named Nora, played by Andy Allo, to sort of reconstruct what happened to him. And the more they kind of work on this mystery, the closer they get to each other. And the more he realizes that his relationship with his real life girlfriend is maybe not as strong as he thought. And so he's kind of got to balance out like his developing relationship with Nora, with the mystery that's going on, the possibility that maybe he was murdered, and just the general kind of like mind-bending stuff that happens to him in this afterlife where, it's just full of wacky characters. Earlier we were talking about like how Black Mirror is kind of like really dark and pretty morbid. Yeah. But I mean, I really like it. I feel like it's it it's just dramatic enough and scary enough for me without totally freaking me out.
Must take a lot to freak you out then.
Well, as we've explored, like I've been getting a little bit more into horror now, so maybe I'm desensitized or something. But there's just enough kind of comedic hijinks in Upload that it helps you kind of swallow some of the darker implications of this, because there's a bit of violence. Like, you know, there's a scene where they kind of cut to the real world in an episode of Upload, and some corporate company is trying to unlock the ability to put people's souls that are being stored in these vacation resorts back into a clone of their human body. And the experiment is like televised, but it doesn't work, and the person's head explodes and there's like blood going everywhere. But it's played for laughs. So that's kind of a bit of the tone where like there's corporate culture has totally corrupted America even worse than it currently is. And there's all these kind of one-off gags, like there's been all these corporate mergers, and like Panera is now part of Facebook, so they're called Panera Facebook, and they run like a Las Vegas themed digital afterlife that you can store your soul in. And Oscar Mayer has also taken over a tech company, and they're like, so
I just need one point of clarification. When Robbie Amell dies and he wakes up in this new reality, does he know right away he's in a new reality, or is there like some sort of like path of discovery?
He knows pretty early on, because he was conscious when he was being wheeled into the hospital, and his girlfriend is like, "All right, I've paid for the thing. Like, you know, you can."
Oh, okay. So he knows he's dead.
He briefly he has to like get. It's kind of like he's really groggy when he wakes up, and it takes him a few minutes, but he does, and of course he's got this real woman who ends up being his like love interest, who's his customer service rep, who's there kind of guiding him through the setup process, and she kind of like installs his software.
Oh, okay. So it's not like the Matrix, where like people in the Matrix may not know they're in the Matrix kind of deal.
No, it's all very like you can call on your customer service rep at any time, and they will get.
Oh, okay, so you can call on your Janet at any time. So you know right away. Okay, I get it. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and so you can definitely feel the influence of like The Good Place and Greg Daniels' other shows like The Office and Parks and Rec. Right. And for some people, maybe the comparisons will be a little bit too close, and it'll feel too derivative. But I think it's the performances, especially Andy Allo, who I hadn't seen in anything before. She's got like a pretty impressive musical career. She was performing with Prince for a few years.
Oh, wow.
Before he died. And her solo work, that I've listened to a couple of her albums on Spotify. She's really good. And she'd been working in TV on like, bit parts here and there, but this is her first leading role. And I got to say, like, she's pretty solid on her own. Like she's kind of the heart of the show, because her character, has kind of her foot in both worlds. She's a living person, but she spends so much time catering to the needs of her clients in this digital afterlife. And of course, she starts to get closer to Robbie Amell's character. So
that actually makes sense, because Janet's, I think, my favorite character on The Good Place.
Yeah. So she's actually Janet is slowly becomes more and more important as The Good Place goes on. So
because they're like so central to like the narrative of telling the story and explaining things.
Yeah, exactly.
And sort of setting the stage for potential conflicts to arise, and helping basically guide the audience through this universe.
On occasion, like I was saying, it feels like Amazon was very kind of shrewdly trying to get its own version of The Good Place or its own version of Black Mirror. But I think this is different enough that people could get hooked on it, and they've ordered a season 2, so we'll see where they take it for the next episodes.
Fair. Sounds good.
So maybe we'll try to cram in like a brief little discussion of Nowhere Man before we close things out today.
Right.
So this is a show that I had no idea was on Netflix at all, and you'll probably
hey, me neither. Up until like a few weeks ago. So
so tell me about this. Like I read the review that you put up on the site, but this is set in Taiwan.
Yeah. Okay. So just in case that we run out of time and we decide to cut this part out of the episode, I have written a review on Nowhere Man on our website, kinetoscope.ca. So if you want to know more, head over to the website. You can read all about it. You can reach out to us, and we'd love to chat about it. But so Netflix, this is their first ever production in Mandarin, taking place in Taiwan. The show's a mix of Mandarin and Taiwanese. So if you don't have a strong command of the language or aren't familiar with either language, I think this is maybe not the best, because even though I was familiar with both languages, it was a little hard to follow. The plot itself revolves around three, low-level gangsters who end up getting involved with a botched kidnapping. And the story is about them present day in jail, and it jumps around from timeline to timeline as the events unfold, and they're trying to reconcile with stuff in the past. So the first episode was interesting, but really hard to follow. If you're not interested in Taiwan, I think this is something that you could probably skip. But if there's enough elements in the pilot episode, I do recommend maybe just watching a bit more. It's a limited series, only 8 episodes. Each episode varies in length from half an hour to an hour, depending on the material. For me, it's just a very nostalgic experience because a lot of things they say, a lot of things they do, a lot of things they eat and drink really remind me of Taiwan. The main character, Chen, who's played by Joseph Chang, he's in jail when we first meet him. His son ends up getting kidnapped, and he breaks out of prison to understand why and to retrieve his son, basically. So there's a bit of a prison break element to it. There's a bit of drama into it. There's a bit of romance in it. And there's a bit of an action epic in it because at one point he takes on like 20 gangsters himself. And there's this like really old boy type sequence where he takes on all of them. And it's supposed to be, it's not in one take, but there are various continuous shots.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But the one thing I kind of want to make a point about this is that this was released actually late last year. And I only heard about it now, and I'm really frustrated I only heard about it now because for whatever reason, Netflix doesn't suggest these kinds of titles to me. Netflix has actually made a lot of investment in like Korean dramas, Bollywood movies, Asian movies in general. But because I don't know if it's because we mostly watch Western movies or because we're in North America, it's so hard to find. And it wasn't, maybe because the critical reviews weren't great, it wasn't released with much fanfare. But I think in general, it's well shot. It's just poorly paced. There's too many disparate elements going on. So it's really hard to really get a grasp. Your reaction is more like, huh? That's it? Maybe I should backtrack a little bit because I finished the show and I read the plot synopsis. And in the plot synopsis, there's some sort of like sort of clairvoyant ability that the main character is supposed to have. But because there's no visual cues when you watch the show, it's really hard to tell what exactly his ability is or what it represents. And so when the ending tries to be like kind of symbolic and dreamy and sort of like a bit of an acid trip sometimes with the colors they use, you end up when it ends, you end up going, what the hell did I just watch?
Right. Yeah. So they for some reason, like they weren't, the cinematography just wasn't communicating this like extra dimension to the story.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's needed because you can understand the story without even knowing that this main character has some sort of clairvoyant ability. And I wonder if it's like a mistranslation in some part because Nowhere Man is not a literal translation of the Chinese title. If you translate the Chinese title literally, it's more like guilty or sin dreamer, someone who dreams about their past sins, basically. And Nowhere Man implies a sort of like, Nowhere Man reminds me of a sort of like lone wolf hero who like wanders from town to town, kind of like Tom Hardy in Mad Max.
Yeah,
where, like, he doesn't really belong anywhere, but he's like this character that comes through a town and somehow fixes everything.
Not to mention the Beatles song.
Right, exactly. So actually, if you Google Nowhere Man, that's the first result you get.
Of course.
So I feel like the title itself betrays the show itself.
It almost makes you wish that, like, you know how on Twitter, it's a feature they've been trying to push for a few months now, or maybe as much as a year, but the ability to follow topics instead of just accounts.
I don't find the algorithms are very good, though.
No, well, what I'm saying is, like, on Twitter, you can choose to follow certain topics, and it will suggest ones to you based on the accounts that you follow. So it would be interesting if like Netflix did something similar where the algorithm wouldn't just suggest movies based on things that you'd watched or rated, but it would also give you the ability to manually tick certain boxes being
I see what
I'm
you
interested. I'm interested in movies about Taiwan, and then it would show you more movies about Taiwan, and it wouldn't try to like rely so much on guesswork.
Right. Okay, I see what you mean. I totally agree with you there. Out of curiosity, did you listen to the music? So in the review, I had made some links about certain things that the show mentions, and one of them was a theme song, and the theme song sung in Taiwanese. I don't know if you listened to it or not.
Oh no, I didn't see that you'd linked anything.
Yes, I did. Okay. If you're interested in it, listen to the theme song. It's quite good. It's in Taiwanese. It's a little different from what people are used to, I think. And it gives you a pretty good feel for the show. In general, it's a very disheartening, depressing show. It's got a lot of, obviously, gang elements, but it doesn't necessarily end on a very happy note.
And it's only a miniseries, so it's not going to do season 2?
No. Well, I hope not. It doesn't deserve a season 2. And I talked about this too. Like, there's 8 episodes that range from half an hour to an hour. And that alone tells you how awful the pacing it is. Yeah,
because, I've seen other shows, especially in like this era of continuing peak TV, where you're seeing, there's been other Netflix shows that have done like, oh, we're going to do an episode that's like a feature-length movie, and then we're going to do an episode that's 20 minutes. Like, you remember me talking about the OA?
Yeah.
The OA was like very bad for that, and at times it felt a little bit pretentious because it was like, oh, look at us, like only streaming shows can have like wildly varying episode lengths because, if this was like network TV, they would have to get their commercials in. But like, look at us. We can do like crazy episode lengths that are totally tailored to the story we're telling per episode.
That to me, though, is a sign of bad pacing, though.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
It means that you can't break it up into equal parts. And there are parts in Nowhere Man where I think, wow, this is a beautiful slow burn. And then there are parts where I'm like, you need to speed this up.
Right.
Like, there's certain times where it lingers too often or it moves too quick. And I wonder if this would not be better as a 2-part movie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's just how I feel. But if you want to see some good scenery of Taiwan and get a good feel of what it was like in the 80s and 90s and even 2000s, I think it's a pretty decent place to start. The eye for detail is very good.
Oh, well, that's good. Because you talked recently about another show that had like some Taiwanese roots, and you were saying how
Tiger Tail. It was awful.
Yeah, and it was all over the map, you said, in terms of how it was depicting Taiwan. So
yeah, or just like any Asian country, I really think you really have to be accurate if you really care about this stuff. It's like in Black Panther when they go to Korea, and then I think it's Lupita Nyong'o speaks Korean to an Asian lady, and the Asian lady speaks Korean back. It is 100% so obvious that that Asian lady is not Korean. For white audiences, for English speaking audiences, it's like, whatever. But like, we're in an age where you should be a little more or a little less ignorant.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Especially when you're doing a movie or a production that involves different nationalities. So, but yeah, authenticity is huge. Nowhere Man gets a lot of that right. The rest, I would say, is pretty forgettable.
All right, well, that about does it for this episode. So head over to kinetoscope.ca, where we have reviews of Hammer, which new Canadian co-production that I saw recently on VOD. We've got a review of Upload, which we talked about on this episode. Will there be a review of The Old Guard? Jason, is there?
Sure. I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
I feel like I don't have much to say about The Old Guard. I feel like I have more to say about Eurovision, but there's definitely a review of Nowhere Man if you're interested. So head on over to kinetoscope.ca to click on our links. Talk to us on Twitter at kinetoscope.ca or at jrobertsnow or at jchen16, or you can email us at extrabutterypod@gmail.com.
But yes, until next time, my name is Robert Snow in Toronto.
And my name is Jason Chen in Vancouver. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.